I like that. Just the feedback, even if it's negative, hey, this is what you did wrong. There are ways to spin that and use that as motivation. So, moving on to chapter 8, decision making. I'm gonna take this one, guys. So, looking at this, like as a leader, how much or how little do you involve your team in decision making? Man, I see this literally every day in the Army. We talk about, what's the proper way to make decisions. We talk about the 8-step training model. How you make a decision, when you put that plan into action, who you send that out to, your ability to execute that action, your ability to provide feedback upon that action. We call them after action reports. So your ability to go to every soldier and be like, hey, what went right today? What went wrong today? And as a leader, decisions fall on you. It's much easier to be the guy that gets told what to do and does that action to the best of their abilities than it is for the guy to take 20 individuals, give them each a task in order to accomplish the larger mission. So I think this guy gives me an example of when I was in Hawaii. I was in Hawaii and I was serving with an infantry platoon, and we were in the jungles conducting night operations, and I was hanging out with a couple guys that were sergeants. So me as a cadet, I'm 22 years old at this time, and I'm looking at these individuals that have been in the Army for 8-10 years. They're 28, 29, 30-year-old individuals, and I'm telling them, hey, like, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan. This is how we're going to get the job done. And they all looked at me like I had 3 eyes, and they're like, sir, that doesn't work. And they broke it down to me, and I realized in that moment, I don't know everything. And just because I'm the leader doesn't mean that I have to make all the decisions or I'm by myself. You still have a team surrounding you. And in fact, as a leader, if you're not utilizing the expertise and the competency of your teammates, not only will they trust you less, but that's just doing yourself a disservice because you don't have the experience and you don't have the outside, that vision, that 360-degree vision, where that one guy who's an expert in his job or his position is able to look at a situation and be like, hey, this is what worked in the past. And if you're not going to listen to that because your pride is getting in the way and you're like, I'm the leader, I make the decision, then you will fail and your people will hate you. And that's just the cold hard truth of that. So as a leader, man, use your team, use their expertise, and get the mission done, whether it's on the battlefield or in the classroom or in the workplace. So that's all I have to say about that. Chapter 9, developing and working in teams, mastering the forming stages of Tuckman's stages of team development. So just with this one, a lot of words in that title, we're just looking at what's your biggest tip for helping people feel like a team when they first meet and are still strangers? How do you create that group cohesion? So guys, which one of you wants to take this one?
All right, so my take on this is just first introduce everybody to each other and split everybody up into teams and just create activities where they could each be competitive with one another and just get to know each other, how they operate, what their motives are, how they work, how they motivate themselves to complete a task. And for me, a personal story is once I became a football player here at Azusa Pacific University, I didn't know anybody on the team. I felt like an outsider. And what the coaches did, they split us up into groups. And in these groups, they had us compete against other groups. And I just created bonds through the groups I've made and opposing groups just through the competitive nature that we all had. And in doing so, I just learned a lot about my teammates, how they worked as a team, how they ultimately got to a task and completed it, and just their personalities. So I became better friends with all of them. So I just think that unity that you bring through the teams and through competing through different teams, I think ultimately brings a team together and just helps in the long run. Do you guys have any other takes on that one?
Team development, you gotta bring them together and get that cohesion started early, because if you let it slide, it'll be if you let it slide at the beginning, then that relationship will never form, and it's harder to grow as friends when you've been working side by side for 5 years and never talked than it is that first 5 days and you're forced to, forced to hang out with each other. And that while they may not like it at first, or someone might be a little bit more reserved in their personality, in the long run it's necessary. So going into chapter 10, we're looking at leadership. What is the best way to describe the difference between a leader and a manager? Jose, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I love this question, Seth, because I think a lot of people don't realize what the difference actually is between a leader and a manager. And while it's going to sound funny, it's super simple. Managers manage and leaders lead. Meaning, a manager, their whole purpose and their goal is to keep what's already going and make sure that maintains. A leader, their whole objective is to make things better. Consistently making things better than what's already working, consistently making things better from what's not working. A manager is only concerned with, is the system that we set up happening correctly? Yes, I'm doing my job. A leader says, is it working? Yes, but how can we make it better? And that's the difference that a lot of people don't realize, because they think if I go into leadership, all I have to do is get the win. But the reality is, the minute you get the win, you have a new objective. You have another win that you have to go after. And that's what a real leader is. That's the difference between leadership and management.
That's an awesome take on that. And I could go on and we could probably sit here and talk for 20 minutes just on leadership, but we're going to have to move on. So chapter 11, change in organizations and conflict management. So how do you get people to become more comfortable with change or not to resist change when it happens? Charles?
Well, obviously, Seth, not everybody's going to be comfortable with change. We see this time and time again. As an athlete, we have a saying here at APU, to be comfortable being uncomfortable, which means, there's going to be plenty of times and settings that we're not going to enjoy whatever that goal or that mission is. I know there's plenty of times on the football field where conditioning is not my most favorite thing. And honestly, for me to get past that was really me looking side to side at my brothers there on the field and knowing that I'm not doing this just for me. This hurt and this training isn't for my demise or anything. This is for me and my team. We have a goal. We made a mission and we made a goal that this is what we're going to accomplish this year, being national champions, being the first APU team to go to a playoff in a Division II conference. And when you have a goal, when you have a belief in something with your brothers or with your employees or with your company, if you have a belief in that, change is going to be easier for you to accomplish. Yeah, absolutely.
Here to Abe.
I completely agree with what Charles had to say. I also believe that it stems with trust. If you have trust within an organization, I think wherever steps it decides to take, the employees would be able to trust that it's going in the right direction, even if it's not in their best interest. And even if it's not in their best interest, just understanding the motive behind it and what that decision is leading towards, I think will ultimately clear a lot of things for the employees and help them understand the steps moving forward in the company.
Just to add to that, just because I love this question, the reality is people don't join an organization or a company or whatever they're joining because they love the way things are, like, the system is happening. They join the organization because they love why they're doing it. And that's really, when you have a change coming, you need to keep hitting on the why you're there, the mission of what your company is doing. And if you continue to hit home on why people are there, they'll realize that the small change that you're trying to make things better isn't that big of a deal, but making your reason for being there more powerful is what's actually important.
Man, and I'm gonna jump on that too. And I just got one little funny quirk that we say in the Army, and it's this idea of embrace the suck. When you really hate what's going on, smile in the face of adversity. And that's more at the individual level, but if there's one thing you can take from that, it's just when things are going bad, take time to laugh at yourself and laugh at the situation and realize, it might be pretty bad right now, but in 5 years it's probably going to make for a pretty good story, and it'll be a good teaching point for my further subordinates and my family as well. So moving into our final chapter before we hit our bonus questions, we're looking at organizational culture. In your opinion, guys, what is the best way to really establish organizational culture and get your employees to be committed to those company values? How do you get them to buy into the process? So what do you guys think?
Honestly, I think the best way to get people or establish organizational culture is to start in the hiring process. You should have never hired anybody who didn't complement or agree with your company values in the first place. Why did you bring someone on who disagreed with pretty much everything that you stand for? Therefore, in your hiring process, you have to be very intentional about making sure that you're looking for not only an intelligent worker, a skilled worker, someone with a lot of experience, but more so someone who understands what you value as a company or as an organization, and then they bring their assets along with the values that complement or go right along with that. I think that's honestly the best way to establish organizational culture. Obviously, there's a lot of things you have to do once people get in, but if they never had it in the first place, they're never going to get it. They're never going to have the same values as you. You can't make anybody love or value something that they never originally loved or valued in the first place.
But what do you guys have to say? Someone who can put, like, to this question, sorry, if someone can put like a real good game face on for an interview, and you hire that person on the job, and it's not until maybe a couple months into his hiring that you see there's some complaints about that employee, but because of HR reasons, you can't get rid of that person. How do we deal with that?
You know, you're hitting us with the hard questions here, Charles. I love that, though, because, you know, how do you stop yourself from being duped is pretty much what you're saying. Someone puts on their game face and tells you everything that you want to hear so that you hire them. Well, then you need to reevaluate what you're doing in the hiring process, because it's not about what you want to hear. It's about what's best for the organization. So they might tell me everything that I like, tell me how great of a fisherman they are and how much they love the outdoors. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this guy fit in the organization because, you know what, I like the things that he does outside. Well, that's not the purpose of the interview, you know? If you have the right questions and you're getting deep down and you're like, what are your personal drives? And what really motivates you? And then you keep asking them to elaborate on it. They might have a really good 10-word quip right off the bat to tell you, this is what motivates me. I love having fun and working hard and being engaged every day. So, okay, but then why? And why does that motivate you? And who drove you to have that? And what events in your life, you know? You can only fake so much as you carry through that interview process. So you need to understand the process